you so much, Dr. Craig, for introducing me, and thank you all for attending this presentation. Craig and I, as what he has said, we come a long way. At a very young age, when I was looking for a job to get into the industry, they were my first bosses that I had. But if there's one thing special, I will always give credit back to Craig, was like, he really supported my journey. He is a boss who would come to class whenever I had presentations to make. And that journey has made me who I am today. And I'm happy that even if I left Malaysia a long time ago, we are still in touch, and we are both doing what we love. And tonight, I'm not here to say that I know I'm a specialist, but I'm just here to share with you a little bit of knowledge of how interdisciplinary research has really helped me to be able to get a lot of funding. Some of the projects I'm going to share with you, they have basically all have been funded, and they have been funded on the basis of interdisciplinary research. And I'm saying this because my greatest desire that after this presentation, we should be able to link up. It doesn't have to be me, but you can link up with whoever in this group and be able to write something together that can get funding across the world. Today, a lot of funders, they are only funding researchers that have interdisciplinary aspect into it. If you don't show the interdisciplinary part, then it's always a challenge, and most of these researchers tend to be rejected. So Third Degree offering this platform is to share with us. And I will start with one question when I'm sharing. Let me go ahead and share my screen so we can go together. Craig, you will help me admit people. I think there are some people who are coming in as we go ahead. Okay, this is the question that I have. Before I start this presentation, can we all take a photo in this, take this photo of this, can you scan this QR code and answer this question? If you cannot scan, you can also join Mentimeter with the code provided, and just share with me, why are you doing academic research? For some of us who can't do this, but you can type, please type in our chat, why are you doing an academic research? This will help me be able to know how we can proceed as we carry on with this. Sorry, I got it out. Yeah, why are we doing an academic research, or why have you decided to do an academic research? Sorry, I'm gonna return the screen back. It's just, I had a small thing that happened here. Okay, good. For those of us who didn't get the code, here it is. Okay. Unfortunately, I'm not able to see the chat, but for those who are sharing in the chat, keep sharing. Why are you doing research? Yeah, I see someone saying, I believe it's stronger approach, plus it's interesting to explore from different perspectives. Let's keep sharing. Let's keep sharing. Why are we doing research? Because answering this question will help us understand what I'm about to share, and will help us, because as I present, I want you to put yourself in what I'm going to share. Don't look at my things, but just look at your own research or your own ideas and see how you can work it out through this presentation and how best you can make it.
Judith, I think let's get everybody to answer in the chat box, because Mentimeter is being uncooperative with me. So let's get everybody to type in the chat box the answer to this question.
Okay, perfect.
Cool.
Okay, someone says, pursuing personal interest gives me intellectual freedom. Gives a holistic view. Guys, let's keep sending. We have more than 14 of us, hoping I can get 14 answers because we are all researchers in one way or another. It doesn't matter if you're doing PhD, you're doing your master's. Yeah, some issues are topics should be seen from many approach, correct? To expand my horizon and areas since it's not further explored, correct? Yeah, let's keep even a one word thing. It's a way to contribute hopefully original perspective on a social, cultural, or historical matter, correct? You are already talking about interdisciplinary there. Yeah, as a PhD student and a lecturer, academic research allows me to contribute to the advancement of knowledge in my field while continuously improving my teaching. It sharpens my critical thinking, keeps me updated with current developments, very right, very correct, and ensures that I'm not just teaching theory, but also engaging with real-world issues and evidence-based solution. Research also helps me mentor students better as I can guide them through practical challenges and methodologies grounded in experience. Ultimately, it's about the impact in academia and in the wider community. Very correct. Now, having said that, these are very good, yeah, Andrew says to get different perspective grounded from different professionalism. Now, what you notice, the answers you guys are giving me, there's no one here who is saying, I'm going to change something. You know, sometimes when you meet people doing research and they tell you, oh, the organization X has not been doing something correctly, and therefore I want to do research because I want this organization to change. Actually, in academia world, we are not doing research because we want organizations to change, but rather we are doing research because we want to contribute knowledge. And a lot of you, what you are sharing is true. You want to contribute knowledge in a different way. You know, contributing knowledge, it can either be in a theory, in the practical, in the methodology, or in the analysis. So the whole reason why we are doing academic research, and that's why I wrote academic research, and I just didn't write research because we understand we have academic research and we have organizational research. And many times, when we talk about academic research, let me now proceed with my presentation. When we talk about academic research, okay, are you able to see my second slide? Okay, good. Now, when we talk about academic research, I will start by talking a little bit about interdisciplinary research, and then we'll go down further. What should you do and how can you do it? And then from there, we will see how we can navigate our own ways. When we talk about interdisciplinary research, basically it's a cooperative effort by a team of investigators, each expert in the use of different methods and concepts who have joined in an organized program to attack a challenging problem. But what I'm trying to say here is that this is the research that brings in different disciplines. And when I say experts, I'm not saying that now if you want to do research, you should start going in different departments looking for people to do this research. No, but later I will teach you how you can bring different disciplines together, even if it's a single authored research. Yeah, or it's a co-authored research, how you can bring in, the whole point is you being able to bring different disciplines together. And remember, these disciplines you're bringing together, it's knowledge of that comes from different experts. So that's the whole point, that you are able to bring knowledge from different experts and be able to put it in one, to be able to use that knowledge to be able to solve this challenging problem. So basically, interdisciplinary research, it's formation of a team in which two or more disciplines, and look at the word I've marked, integrate. How do you integrate one or two or three or four or six disciplines to be able to look at a particular problem? And as I said before, a lot of funders are looking for interdisciplinary approach. Now, interdisciplinary research, why do we do interdisciplinary research? Number one, because it promotes methodological innovations. And when I mean innovations, I'm saying that it gives us new ways. Innovation, I'm not saying that you should sit down and come up with your own theory, no. But you can bring a theory, for example, from one author and another theory from another author, and look at how these two theories, when combined together, how can they solve this situation? And then you come up with your own conceptual framework. Now, that conceptual framework is what I'm talking about, methodological innovation. So you will come up with a conceptual framework that will help to tackle the issue. And not that you're solving the issue, but this framework is helping you to discuss the issue and help other academicians look at this issue with a different perspective. Now, the best way, why we do interdisciplinary research, it's the best way to solve complex problems in current scientific research. We understand the world is evolving at a very rapid pace. And now we have our SDGs, the 17 Sustainable Goals. And today, we are looking at how can we merge these goals, 1, 2, or 3, or 5, or 7 goals, and be able to approach an issue. And also doing interdisciplinary research, it helps to enrich researchers' considerations of particular issues, innovative theories, or concept. When you bring ideas from different experts together, it will help you also as a person to look at issues in a more broader way, rather than you being, for example, people who, I come from a communication background, and if I keep approaching an issue with just a communication mindset, I might end up missing a lot from the linguistic point of view, or from the health point of view, or from, psychological point of view. So the reason why we are being encouraged as researchers to look at research in an interdisciplinary way, it's because you as a researcher, you will be more knowledgeable, and you will be able to have that confidence to discuss an issue because you have explored it in different ways. Now, as I said, I'm going to share some of the researches that I've done, which have been funded, and these researches have an interdisciplinary aspect. Now, you see, my first research was about sustainable development of professorship career pathways in German and Sub-Saharan Africa university systems. And this was the concept. This was the topic. But now someone will ask, where's the interdisciplinary aspect? Now, interdisciplinary aspect, number one, we were looking at diversity. When you look at German and Sub-Saharan university systems, these are systems that are built on different diverse mechanism. Different university work on a different structure. In different ways. Because they have partnerships around the world, and these partnerships tend to affect how they also perform. Every German and Africa has different culture, and culture is something that it's very big and you can't exhaust, but this is an area that we had to look into. We had to look into personality because, remember, we are dealing with professors, we are dealing with people. So people's personality had a contribution in our research. And also we were looking at structures. Now, when you talk about structures, we are looking at the university systems. Different university systems have different ways of handling issues, and the bureaucracies that you have. So basically, now for us to be able to look at these 4 main areas that we picked, we had to integrate some theories. And one of the theory, later you can go and look at it, we had triple helix model, we had social identity theory, we had relational cultural theory. So basically you can see all these 3 theories were the key main theories in this research. And these are the theories that helped us to build our concept. Yeah. And now that is the concept we are going to use to carry our research. Of course, it's an ongoing research, and now we are moving to another stage. But definitely, even the funder, when they saw that this is how we are bringing in different ideas to be able to tackle this challenge, and all of us will agree, both Sub-Saharan and Europe, we are suffering with the challenge of professorship career pathway. A lot of people don't want to be professors, and even the few professors we have, they are also leaving academia, going into government and being hired in different places. So we are looking at how can this pathway be sustainable and be able to grow more professors. So basically that was the issue, and that is how we are going to tackle this issue. Now, for example, if this research was just, if we didn't put the interdisciplinary aspect, and let's say, for example, we just wanted to look at identity, Like, how can an identity shape your career pathway? Definitely, the funders wouldn't even see the reason why they should fund this, because this is just going to be a one-sided research that is just going to contribute to the many researches that are already available. Now, why did we do this? We did this to develop a consolidated framework that will help us to measure the above issue, and the issue is the professorship career pathway. Now, another second research is this. Now this first research, the interesting part now is it's a team of 4 of us. I come in with my communication, and hence my area of specialization is on culture. One of my colleagues, she comes from management, so her specialization is on structure. The other colleague comes in with the social aspect. I mean, her specialization is much on personality, growth, and she comes in with the perspective of how do I call it? Personality, I would say personality. And one or the other colleague is looking into matters in regards to diversity. So the 4 of us, we are bringing in all our research experiences into this. And it's quite interesting that even as we keep developing this, we are also seeing it something interesting, and it's actually fun. Now, another research where now we are 2 of us. This one, we have also gotten funding. We got funding. We have already collected data. We have already done our first paper. We have another 2 more papers coming out. We have presented in one of the conference. This one, we were looking at sustainable partnership in higher learning institution between Germany and Sub-Saharan Africa, a study on intercultural relations and academic mobility. Now, the reason why we did this research, I will get here, how did we come up with this? Because I'm sure so many people are asking themselves right now, like, how do you even come up with this? A lot of these ideas come from the experience. The issue is that currently I'm the head of international office, and I do send and receive student. And I've seen many times we send and receive student. We send because we have funding. We've been given money to send. We've been given money to receive. But at the end of the day, the world has changed. And like what I told you, you really don't need to go to Africa to understand Africa. You can read Africa through through a lot of information that are provided online. You don't need to go to Europe to understand Europe. Unlike before, people were so excited to pack their suitcase and leave. I've been in Malaysia for 10 years, but when I went to Malaysia, I didn't even have a smartphone. I did not know much about Malaysia. But today, people are traveling to Malaysia when they have all the information on their fingertips. So basically, this research stems from an idea that this is our day-to-day task, but we cannot write research based on our feelings. I had to go and read and find out this higher learning institution, this intercultural relation and academic mobility in higher learning institution. How has it been discussed? What is being talked? What are people saying? So it's from that we were able now to look at this, because German and Sub-Saharan Africa, we have so much funding. We have DAD, we have GIZ, we have so much funding that Europe is giving to fund students to come to Europe and also to go to Africa. But now, how did we look at the interdisciplinary aspect? Goes back again. When you talk about intercultural relations, what are you looking at? You're looking at culture, you're looking at adaptation. But when you talk about mobility, what are you looking at? You're looking at structures. Are these structures supporting mobility? Are these structures effective? You're looking at systems. Which systems do one have to follow? So basically, you see these 4 issues, you can clearly see them in this research. But now, if you see these issues, how do you then now merge them together to be able to help someone somewhere to see the aspect of interdisciplinary? And that comes to my second point. The reason why we did this research is because we wanted to integrate Sustainable Development Goal number 4, Goal number 10, and Goal number 17. Goal number 4 looks at ensuring inclusive and equitable equality education. Number 10 says promoting lifelong learning opportunities. And number 17 says reduce inequality within and among countries to strengthen the means of implementation. So basically, you can see That is what we say interdisciplinary aspect. It's not just about saying this is the issue, but these issues that you have now brought on the table, how are you now putting them together to be able to give a result of something new, something not new, let me not use the word new, but something that is additional to what is going on currently. After doing research, we discovered that many people were just looking at mobility in terms of culture. Some were looking at mobility, studying if students, especially those who are coming from Asia going to Europe, how are they adapting, challenges in language. But us, we wanted to go an extra mile and look at, besides culture adaptation, what are these structures? Because structures and systems keep changing. And if they keep changing, or to what extent do they have an impact to this particular bigger cake that everyone is talking about? Now, this is another third example. This was one of the papers I produced from my own postdoctoral research. After doing my PhD, I went in for my postdoc. And I remember when I applied for this postdoctoral, in fact, I was wondering, will this chair understand my issue? Because the chair of that postdoc was about forced displacement. And they are looking at how forced displacement is affecting climate change. And in a normal situation, in fact, even the call itself did not have a section saying you should have studied. They all wanted people from geography, people from who have done climate change, anything to do with climate change, geography, things to do with urban planning, and that was the region, the area that we're looking at. But when I sat down and I read the call, I realized when you talk about displacement, displacement does not just start from people moving. There's a lot of concepts that give birth to displacement. And that's how I managed to come up with a concept. I'm actually sharing a paper, but of course I didn't share the whole proposal, how I wrote it, because the proposal, I have more papers coming out within that proposal. And you can see one of my first paper I wrote, it was Kijianika utanuliwa. That is a Swahili saying that if you show yourself, you will be exposed. Now you can see I'm bringing in the aspect of language. I'm bringing in the aspect of media. I'm bringing in the aspect of migration. I am bringing in the aspect of culture, and I'm bringing in the aspect of refugee. So these are 5 different areas. Independently, they can actually give you also a papers. But if you were to do a paper on intercultural relation and refugee, for example, adaptation, or do media or refugee adaptation, or do migration and refugee, those would ideal will be independent papers. But then the question will be, and this is just what you can also see online, what other people have done. So how do you now merge these areas together and give birth to something that is additional to what is going on? And basically, what did I do? Actually, this is a single authored paper. I didn't, because I'm trying to also show you interdisciplinary approach doesn't mean you have to go collect people and bring them together and tell them we must do research, but interdisciplinary, it comes with your mindset, how you want to approach this situation. Now, to do this research, I had to combine acculturation theory, users and gratification theory, and social identity theory. Sorry if I might be seeming to go fast. If you have a question, just drop me a question. Feel free to also to ask as we move along. Now, how was this research important? It helped in the contribution of our understanding of the degree of acculturation and identity, and how this has an impact on interpersonal communication. Because at the end of the day, these refugees, their interpersonal communication is what is helping them survive in urban areas, and therefore them making a decision either to continue staying there or to move to third countries. And in order to, if they stay there, definitely they're going to give birth and they are going to use resources. And then it goes back to the climate change that the chair is trying to discuss or trying to explain. And that helps in the discussion of migration. So I want you to see that when you look at research, look above and beyond. Just don't look at the topic and then be limited by the topic. Go above and beyond. Now, the question is this: having shared those 3 examples, then how do you achieve this? Because that is the main question. Now, number 1, I'm not teaching, but I want to share something. I want you to separate between literature review and preliminary search. Many students, when you tell them, can you read literature? Immediately, they know you're telling them to review literature. But today, I want to tell you, first, identify an issue. Don't identify a topic. No one will have a topic without reading. Identify an issue. And what is an issue? An issue stems from your own area of study. We have people here who are coming from medical industry. You have studied so many areas in medical. You have studied so many areas in climate change, in environment. Look at an issue in that area and then go online at your own pace, probably with a drink, with popcorn, with something, and do not sit there saying, I must find a topic. I must look for, just go there with an open mindset to find out what are people saying about this issue. That's what we call preliminary research for information. This will help you establish enough information out there for your needs and to see the context of your research. I'm saying this because I've seen many times students will come up with topics, and then when you tell the student, but this has already been researched so many times, what is your new idea? And they will look at you like, oh, you don't want me to do my research. But the problem is not wanting you to do research, but the main issue is we want to see your contribution. And someone who will be able to show the contribution, this is someone who has done enough and extensive preliminary research. And when you're doing preliminary research, please do not do it with the mindset that this is my topic. Do it with the mindset that I am looking out. I'm trying to find out what are people saying. Number two, locate materials. How do you locate materials? With that topic, for example, you're trying to look at intercultural relations in urban setting. Just type that, intercultural relation in urban setting. Type it in Sage, put it in all the journal platforms that you know, and look at what have people said. And there are some papers when you read, they will speak to you. You will feel like this person is actually, this is a direction I would like to take. Then you download and you save it. But the most important, just don't save on your computer. I want you to index your papers. I've actually put an example here. I hope we can all see. This is how you index your paper. In fact, this is one of my students' work, and I decided to use this example to show you. Now, this is how you index your work. Whatever paper you have seen, write down the title the way it appears. Don't add your words, don't remove anything. Write down their objectives. Write down theoretical frameworks that came out from that paper you're reading. Write down the methodology. Which method did they use in that paper? And lastly, put a remark. A remark is what did you get from the paper? Like, what do you think? Not what do you think? What were they saying? What was the reason of that study? And there are issues that you will put down, but I will tell you later how this is going to help you. So continue doing that. I remember when I did my master's, when I was in Malaysia, my supervisor told me, go and do research of 50 papers. And I looked at him like, are you crazy? And he told me, you do not qualify to come and tell me your research title. Only thing I want to see you, bring me your matrix, and you should have indexed. And this is how you put your index. So what happens is this. Imagine yourself going to cook food, and then you appear in the kitchen and you start looking, you don't even know what you want to cook. And then you start cutting onions and tomatoes. And then at the end of the day, you're forcing this ingredient you have to give you a meal. That will not happen. But if you sat down and did a research of this meal that has been in your head and looked at what other people have been doing, cooking, and how they've been preparing, by the time you get into the kitchen, these ingredients, it will be very much easier for you to mix and you will not waste time in the kitchen. Now, reason why a lot of students are spending years doing research and crying and complaining. Hello, can you hear me? Can just someone put a mic?
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you perfectly. Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. So the reason why a lot of students are spending years doing PhD, masters, and crying and complaining, it's because they do not prepare. Now, the preparation stage is this, what I'm presenting right now. Like, if you could spend 3 months, even 5 months or 6 months, just collecting information. Now, here it's what gives birth to that interdisciplinary aspect that I was telling you. For example, you're looking at, let's look at this student who is looking at film representation on cross-border mobility. One paper will look at research done in America. Another paper will be looking at a research done in China. Another paper will be looking at research done in Africa. But you see, all these researchers, they're talking about one thing, but in a different aspect. So these aspects, one might have looked at film through media, through film as a tourism destination. There's an aspect of tourism that he would pick up from there. You look at film as an aspect of diplomacy. There's a diplomatic aspect that the student is going to pick from. Yeah. So what I'm trying to explain is that when you do a proper research, you will be able to identify these interdisciplinary aspects even way before you start writing anything. So please, interdisciplinary research does not come from you sitting down and collecting people and telling them we have to do research together, but it's about you going to find out what have previous authors said in this area. If this, for example, you're studying acculturation. I mean, acculturation is an area that is very close to me, and that is my area of research. But there's so many people who have done acculturation in destination tourism, acculturation in psychological, acculturation in health. So you see all these articles, they contribute in me having a knowledge and idea of putting an interdisciplinary aspect into it. Now, after you have done this, what do you do next? Identify key repeated concepts. Now, every time you read a paper, now you have already indexed. Let's say you have indexed 50. And if you're doing a PhD, I would advise index at least 50. If you're doing master's, 25, 20 will help. Then now, let me tell you a most interesting part. After you have indexed your paper, don't read anything else. Go back to your matrix and start identifying concepts that have been repeated all the time. If they have been repeating the word intercultural relation, it will click in your mind. For me to be able to discuss this, this concept must be there. And then you will see another concept that comes from another interdisciplinary aspect. And you will see if they're talking about psychological issues, and everyone keeps saying psychological issues, then it means that this is another important, relevant concept that I need to have. Now, so when you mark out all those repeated concepts and look at how these concepts have been studied in different areas. And as I'm saying, you don't have to go and pick 10 areas. You can pick one or two. You can pick one or two, and then helps you to come up with a new idea. And then third, identify a paper. Now, in all these papers you have been reading, there's one paper that will, I remember my supervisor used to say Bible. There's one paper that will be your Bible. What do I mean by Bible? It means that this paper, in one way or another, the theoretical framework or the methodology or the questions that they have used might be the questions that will help you measure your own study. For instance, when I was doing acculturation, I remember very well, there's this PhD that had studied acculturation of Chinese in Canada. And the concept that this author was using, the acculturation scale, it's exactly what I adopted in my own research. But that is not called copying because he was doing Chinese in Canada. I was looking at East Africans in Malaysia. Now, number one, cultural aspects are more or less the same, but there are different ideas that we are going to discuss, of which I will show you as we move along the way. And number three, and the most important, when you're coming up with a research topic, remember this formula. You need CMR, you need a channel, you need a message, and you need a receiver. If these three things are not able to be clear in your title, or rather in your topic, then you're going to struggle along the way, and you're going to struggle. And the moment of staying in the kitchen is going to be forever, because you have not prepared properly. Now, I will go further into this channel in my next slide. Now, what do we mean by message? Message is the preliminary research that you like to integrate. Concepts are like adaptation, intercultural relation, interpersonal communication, identity, destination. Hate is a concept, love is a concept. Now, you can clearly see concepts are issues, not many people always think when you say I'm studying, for example, BBC, BBC can never be a message. BBC is a channel. No one can study BBC. No one will study a university, But what exactly are you studying in that particular moment? So these are issues, and these issues stem from day-to-day life or day-to-day activities. Some of us are lecturers here, some of us are students, and you have gone through, for example, you're doing Bachelor of Mass Communication or you've done Masters of Mass Communication. You have gone through so many concepts in your study. You have studied theories of communication, you have studied communication strategies. There are so many things you have studied crisis management. So those are issues. So once you have identified these issues from your preliminary research, now these issues, one or two, they will form a key variable in your research. And then from that preliminary research, you will find 5 or 6 or 7 articles. They have identified a particular channel that they've been using to measure this issue. If they have identified a media, for example, TV or radio, it serves no harm. But you are also not limited. You can say, these people have been studying higher learning education. I would rather now want to measure this concept in this other environment. Maybe you want to look at how embassies operate, like diplomatic relationship, and the same concept. Or you want to look at it in a different aspect. So your channel will be a platform that will help you measure your message. Please take note. Do not say put your channel as what you're trying to study, because if you fix your channel, for example, you are in Malaysia, or rather you are in Tanzania, and you're saying, I'm studying intercultural communication in TBC, Tanzania Broadcasting Corporation. And then how do you now want someone who is in country X to come and do a research with you? Because you're not giving them a platform to do a research with you. You have already said you are studying TBC, and then no one else should even, it's not even an interdisciplinary. It's a clear-cut point that you're only doing a research for the sake of this particular channel. So try and separate the channel from your title. Make sure that the message stands out. And lastly, you clearly show your respondents. Respondents are people that who are going to answer your questionnaire. And these are the people, and you have to take note. These respondents, they will affect how you will discuss your message. For example, when you talk about culture and you're looking at international students, the way you're going to discuss intercultural relations is not going to be on a local basis. You're going to look at it on a global basis. And some of the authors you're going to quote are people who have studied international students. That is what will support you. So remember that the receivers also play a key role in shaping up the idea that you want to pass across. Now, how do you develop research questions? Time and again, I've always said this, do not formulate your own questions. Don't sit in one corner and start imagining. If I ask students, how long have you stayed here? It will have an impact. No. Why do I say this? Questions that you formulate out of your own feelings and they have not been tested and they have not been validated, they do not justify your reason of using them. Reason being, you will go all along the way and it will reach a stage where you are reporting your results and someone will ask you a question. These results you're presenting to us is based on what? But as someone who has done preliminary research, you're confident to stand there and say, my research is based, a research similar like this was done in country ABCD. And they found out this, and in their area, this is what they established. Me having done it in area A, B, C, and D, I can see either it's matching or not matching. And the reason why it's not matching, you have a reason. So learn to adopt. I'm not saying learn to copy, but adopt. Adopt meaning there are questions that previous researchers have used, or there are statements that they have used. You can adopt those statements and use them. And especially if some of us here, we are from... majority of us who are from social science background, there's a very good researcher. For example, Rebecca Rubin has come up with the research measures 1 and 2. This is a book that gives you even concepts or ideas, statements you should use when you're doing your research, when you're developing your research hypothesis or question. Now, I think until reaching here, you now realize that number one, you do your preliminary research. We are not doing literature review. So let us not say, oh, I'm doing literature review for the sake of now writing my research. No, you are doing a preliminary research for the sake of finding out what are people saying. And then from preliminary research, you will establish your topic, you will establish your hypothesis. That is important. Those two are important. And then now, once you have established your hypothesis or your research questions, research objectives, then these research objectives will give you keywords for you to go again back to that index, to that matrix that you created, and identify articles, or identify, now you pull out those papers that are directly discussing these issues that are already in your concept. And then now start reviewing, start understanding. When this person was discussing in adaptation in this aspect, what were they saying and in what relation? That's what we call literature review. So you are reviewing that literature for the sake of now putting up something so that people can now understand you, like, where are you coming from? Because that's where people will ask you, where are you coming from? And how is this even, where is the interdisciplinary aspect? The interdisciplinary aspect, as I said, it will already be in your message. It will be reflected in your, how do you call it, in your objectives and research questions. And eventually, even in your literature review, you are now reviewing literature based on a particular structure. You are not just, and that's why I told you, when you finish your preliminary research, don't go and read anything else. Those articles you have done, they should be enough for you to start to give you a foundation to write. Even if you're going to look for more articles, you will be looking for more articles within that framework. Yeah, you're not going to start again searching for new things, but because you have already established a direction. Now, what is meant by literature review? I mean, we have gone through research methodology class, we have studied a lot, and I just felt this session is for us to remind each other, what is it about? Why do we do literature review and steps of literature review? Now, literature review is the documentation of a comprehensive review of published and unpublished work from secondary sources of data in areas of specific interest. Now, you can clearly see, when you reach at this stage, you already know the specific thing you want to discuss. You're not there to again start looking for something else. And how do you do your literature review? You go back to your matrix, you pull out the articles are related to the concept, and then you start reviewing them. And reviewing, how do you review literature? You look at how has Albert talked about adaptation, and how has Judith discussed adaptation? And then you bring these concepts from these two people and you put them together, and you are able to either agree or add a statement or one or two, or you can bring these two people and then bring a third person and say, therefore, that's why a research done in ABCD area confirms to these previous researchers. And your writing will be very much easier. I'm saying this because it only took me 2 months of writing my whole PhD thesis, because I did not have to go anywhere. I just sat down. Of course, my PhD took 2 years. I mean, from the time of admission to the time I was completing, it was exactly 2 years. But this was easy because I already had done my research. And when I was sitting down to write, I did not go and download and open any window. Did not open any journal, because I already had enough material. And I had already saved every objective, it had already had a folder. I had a folder saying these articles will help me to discuss objective 1. These articles will discuss objective 2, and these articles will discuss objective 3. And that made life much easier because I had a particular foundation. Now, the literature review is an integral part of the entire research process and makes a valuable contribution to almost every operational step. You need to know the way you review your literature will determine which method should be done, and will determine the results that are going to come out, and will determine how you're reporting the results. And that's what I said. If you formulate your own questions from your own feeling, then at the stage of stage of discussion, you have no benchmark, and therefore you're just going to discuss things out of the air. Now, just a quick reminder, why do we do literature review? It helps bring clarity and focus to your research problem. It improves your methodology. As I said, when you're doing your preliminary research, you realize they used, for example, quantitative. and you saw another person use qualitative, and you can say, I will do triangulation. Like I will start with quantity, and then after I will use the results to triangulate. That means you will have an improvement. Or if let's say they used 20 questions, but you feel there's another, not like you feel, from your preliminary, there's a concept that you want to add on. So it means in your research, you're not going to do 20, probably you're going to do 30 questions. That is another additional thing that you want to bring in and show the correlation. Now, it will help broaden your knowledge base in your research area, and that is what interdisciplinary research is talking about today. Many researchers are aiming to broaden their base of research area. It will help contextualize your findings, and you'll be able to present very good findings that are not based on feelings, but are based on what the world needs to hear, the contribution that you want to contribute. It will, as I said, to bring clarity and focus your research, improve your methodology. Sorry, this has, okay. You cannot effectively start literature review search without an idea of the problem you wish to investigate. So guys, take note. Next time you're writing anything, I know some of us, we are already working on our proposals, or we are at different stages, but you'll be required to publish papers. I mean, we are in the world of academia, and every day we are writing something. Even as I talk to you, I'm already doing my preliminary research of another fellowship that I'm working on. And you see, the story is the same. No matter how much I have done research, I wouldn't say I'm an experienced researcher because I'm still learning, but I still go back to the basics. I still have to go and do my preliminary research. So the literature review can play an extremely important role in shaping your research problem, because this will help you now know how to clearly clearly frame this problem that you're trying to discuss. It also helps you to define the relationship between your research problem and the body of the knowledge in the area. It will help improve methodology, as I said. It acquaints you with the methodology that have been used by others to find answers to questions similar to the one you are investigating. Remember, you're doing research. You are not doing an innovation. Research means that this is something that has been researched before. That's why it's called research, because it has been searched before. So what you're basically doing is that you're either adding some new thing, or you are improving, or you are adding a theory that a previous researcher never thought about, tells you if others have used procedures and methods similar to the ones that you are proposing, which procedures and methods worked well for them, and what pitfalls they have faced with them. And then you are not supposed to face the same pitfalls, you are supposed to be able to improve those pitfalls. Now, literature review ensures that you've read widely around the subject area in which you are intending to conduct your research study. It's important to know that other researchers have found in regard to the same similar questions. So when you are reviewing literature, basically you already have some knowledge in your mind that this thing has been done, and therefore I'm improving, rather than you just sitting on the computer writing and feeling like, oh, this is my idea. And I hear students saying, oh, this is my idea. But when you go online, you find that what they're saying is the idea is something that was done 20 years ago, something that was done 10 years ago. The world is growing at a rapid pace. Today, now people are looking at how are you including SDGs in your research? How are you now using new technologies? Now we have AI. People are doing research in AI. And there's someone who will be stuck doing research back the days even before we had smartphones. Now, contextualize your finding. Literature review helps identify your findings, compare with the existing body of knowledge. This is very important in your discussions. How do answers to your question compare with what others have found? What contribution have you been able to make to the existing body of knowledge? How your finding are different from others? That is very important. Now, a quick one, these are procedures for reviewing the literature. Of course, later we can share the notes. There are 5 steps involved in conducting a literature review. Search for existing literature in your area of study. You have already done the preliminary research. So then you go back to that matrix and look for, as I said, not all papers that you put in that matrix makes it up to your paper. No. They might be out of 50, you realize maybe 30 are the relevant papers, because out of those 30, they have also referenced other papers. So what they have referenced will also give birth to more other papers. So you are not going to be limited. Now, review the literature selected. Don't review everything. Review things based on what you're going to do. Develop a theoretical framework. And this theoretical framework comes from you combining one or two theories together, or combining theories together because you are combining different disciplines. Develop a conceptual framework, and then write up the literature reviewed. Of course, when I say conceptual framework, this basically was supposed to be the last. I mean, it should come after your literature review section. Now that you have identified several books and articles are useful, the next step is to start reading them critically to pull the themes. Now here it means that now when you're doing literature review, all of us, we understand you're not just going to discuss literature as if you're writing a poem. You will have your themes. Like if you're talking about acculturation, you're talking about adaptation, you're talking about, those subtopics that you put in your titles. And these subtopics comes from this fact that you have identified them in your research objectives. Once you develop a rough framework, slot the findings from the material so far reviewed into the framework, using a separate sheet of paper for each theme of that framework. As you read further, go on slotting the information. Now, this is another interesting part. There's no way you can write a research as if you're writing a letter. When you have already developed your research concept, your objectives, these objectives will give you themes. Go and write these themes in a section. So every time you read, you go back to that paper and you read, you realize you are reading about adaptation, but then you have found something to do with acculturation. Just copy and paste it under the section of acculturation and go back and continue reading. You find something to do with the adaptation, you bring it. What we are trying to say that when you're writing when you're writing your paper, you keep pasting information here and there. And then that when you start now combining together to write, it will make your life much easier. You cannot say, I'm reading this whole paper for the sake of adaptation. And then tomorrow I'm reading the same paper for the sake of this. I'm reading the same paper. No, so not reading, reviewing. I'm reviewing this paper for one thing. And then I come back for another thing. For sure, that is going to take you forever. And it will be back to the same stress. Now, notice where there are significant differences of opinion among researchers, and give your opinion about the validity of this difference. What do I mean here? You've realized John says this, and then Peter says the same thing, but in a different way. And then Mary says the same thing that supports what John said. So what you are supposed to do is, you're supposed to bring all these researchers together and tell us now, we who are reading your research, that what was the intention of looking at, why were they looking at this concept? And what was the intention? And how is it significant in your own study and what you're trying to do? Now, ascertain the areas in which little or nothing is known, the gaps that exist in the body of knowledge, because then this will help you to know how much you should go further in reading or things you should avoid. You find a student struggling with things that don't even work, or where they don't have enough information. When you don't have enough information, then that is also a challenge, because how are you going to write something that you don't have enough information on? Now you develop a theoretical framework. Theoretical framework, basically a framework that you want to use to measure your own study. And good frameworks are frameworks that stem from different disciplines. How you can combine disciplines together. For example, some of us who are doing climate change, and some of us who are doing history, and some of us who are doing communication, you can combine two things together and be able to, like I showed you one of my last example, I had a language. So how does language contribute in acculturation? How does media contribute in acculturation, and therefore its impact on immigration? Those are three different disciplines, yeah? No, you develop a conceptual framework, write up the reviewed literature. These are basic things that I've talked about, the subheadings. Now, under each subheading, record the main findings with respect to the theme in the question, highlighting the reason for, against an argument if they exist, and identifying gaps and issues. And in my conclusion, I will say, following the above steps, you'll be able to write a publishable research. It's not just about publishable research. Believe me, you will be able to open doors to so many people sending you emails and telling you, can you please review this paper? Can I work with you? And that's what I see on a day-to-day basis. I get emails because I will see someone saying, based on your paper about this, you qualify to do this. I mean, we have realized you qualify to review this paper, and I will review, because that's how I contribute knowledge, and that's how I open doors to do more research with different people. With those few remarks, I want to say thank you and welcome.